first question, I think. Right. Macie and John, hello. You've both been to San Diego's ComiCon, and now you're at CCXP. Why is CCXP so much better?
It truly is. The people, you guys.
Yeah, the people make the place. I've never in all my life known such an outpouring of passion and commitment and goodwill and such wonderful, wonderful vibes from such beautiful people. And thank you so much for having us in your town and at your camp.
So, both of you guys started working on this show when you were very young. John, how old were you?
I was 20.
You were 20.
Nearly 21, yeah.
Macie, when we first met you, you were?
12.
12. So, we were wondering, what's your first memory from the show? Maybe move the mic a little bit farther from your face so it doesn't freak you out because it's so loud. What's your first memory, John, from Game of Thrones that you can blink response? What's your first memory?
Well, my first memory is probably that huge table read that we did in Belfast must have been July 2010 or something. And that was when we first got a sense of just what a big operation this show was going to be. Just the amount of people in that room, the fact that the read-through was being filmed and streamed to New York live. It was the first time that we got all of these actors in the room, and the first time that we heard the voices that were going to say these lines actually say these lines. That's when we realised how much talent we had on this show, how we were going to have to really play our A game if we're not going to embarrass ourselves amongst all these other actors. Yeah, that was when it started to feel really real, and that was when we knew that we had a huge debt to repay to you guys for choosing us for these parts in the first place, knowing how high the standard was going to be, and just hoping from that moment on, right up until our very last shot in season 8, that we didn't embarrass ourselves.
How about you, Mace? The first thing you remember?
Well, I was lucky enough in the audition process to do an audition with Sophie. So one of my earliest memory from the show is meeting Sophie along with other girls who could have possibly played Sansa, and just knowing from that moment that no matter whether or not I was going to play Arya, I wanted that girl to play Sansa. And then now to have this decade-long friendship, it's just the best, really.
And how much did Sophie have to pay you to say that she was the best?
I'm still waiting on my check.
She's got the money now, so. What did you guys ask?
So it's a pretty huge cast. Of all of the people that you have chosen to be in the show, who is the easiest to cast and who is the hardest to cast?
Well, starting with the hardest, because it's you. And this is true. We saw, Arya, for anyone who's read the books, they know that Arya is such a powerful character. She starts very, very young in the show. And so we needed a girl who could be tough, but also vulnerable, who could be strong, but also be a little girl. And she just had to be right. And we must have seen 300 girls in London with Mina Gold, and none of them seemed to be quite Arya. And then one day we were sitting, we were on a location.
In Morocco.
We were in Morocco. We were scouting. Yeah. And we saw a little thumbnail picture of Macie Williams, like that big, on our laptops. And even in a picture that small, there was just something about her little smirk, or there was just something about her that seemed like Arya. Like we saw it and we were just like, that's fucking Arya.
Better, we just went, please, 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 please be good.
Yeah. And then we clicked on the tiny little picture and she starts talking and we're like, yeah, that's Arya. And then we brought you in to read with Sophie. And the two of you together was just magic. And from that point on, it was easy. The easiest casting we ever had, I'd say, was Mark Addy for King Robert. He was the first person we saw.
The first audition that we saw was Mark's audition for King Robert. And it was the first take of the first audition, and it was perfect. And we thought, oh, this is going to be easy. Everybody just gets it, and they're going to do it perfectly. And that was the only time that ever happened.
Okay, ready for me?
John, do you have a question?
Okay, I do have a question. We know that you can't talk about season 8, which seems a bit unfair, right? A bit churlish. But can you speak to the emotions you felt on the first and last days of filming?
The first day of filming, I remember vividly, we were in Scotland, and I remember walking onto our set, and there were hundreds of people working hard, doing their jobs, and I remember of these 400 or 500 people, I think I know what maybe 10 of them do. And the other 490, what they were doing was a complete mystery to me, because we'd never run a television show before. We were started as writers. And I just remember the feeling of a combination of extreme good fortune at being able to do this, and realizing that we really had to start learning what this thing was if we were going to do it properly. The last day, you remember the last day?
By then we knew what 12 people did.
Yeah, but we now know what at least 20 people of the 500 did.
The last day, for me, Dan and I had been working on the show for 13 years, way before anyone saw it on television. And so it's been, you know, a major part of our lives for a very, very long time. And the very last day that we shot together, because we were directing the finale, and I can't spoil anything, but I'll just say it was a lot of destruction around. It was ruins, and we took a picture, just the two of us, and it just kind of felt right, because we, you know, with a lot of help from a lot of people, built up this thing, and then at the end we kind of had to destroy it all and say goodbye to it.
It was just, I mean, these guys here, especially these guys, because we've known these guys for 10 years. And it's when you go to school with someone for 10 years, when someone's in they're family to us. These are the people that we would see every day for most of the year, for 10 years of our lives. And it was really, it was bittersweet, because we had, on the one hand, we'd done something that we were all very proud of together. And on the other hand, we'll all see each other again in the future many, many times until we're all even older than David and I are now. But we won't be doing this again. And so it was sad to let go of it, because a part of you wants to keep doing it forever. But we knew that if we kept doing it forever, it would stop being what it was. We knew it was time to end it. So it was a very strange and wonderful feeling at the very end.
Should we turn it up? You ready?
Turn up the heat.
All right. Macie and John, if you could marry any character on Game of Thrones, male or female, who would it be and why?
Oh, what a lovely question.
Sansa Stark. Because she's really fit.
Fit or fierce?
Both.
I don't know if they translated that correctly.
Sexy.
Yeah.
She's very sexy.
Gustosa. Right? Good. John?
Well, I am going to say Gilly, and I'm not because I'm expected to say Gilly, but I think it would do me a lot of favours if I married a woman whose only experience of men was Craster before me. I like a low benchmark. I thrive on a low benchmark.
That's a good answer. So, for both you guys, which characteristics of your characters would you say are most like you in the real world, and which characteristics characteristics of your characters are different from you in the real world? Like, what part of you is most Arya, and what about Arya is least like you?
Well, I think I wish I was more like Arya more than I actually am. But I would say, I don't know. We look pretty similar.
You're a dead ringer for Arya.
I think, funnily enough, the aspect of myself that is most like Sam at the start has probably changed along with Sam's development as well. And I think Sam's one of those people who is always the last person to see good in himself, and to see worth in himself, and to see that he is capable of things. And I think I used to be like that before this show. I think I still am like it to some degree. But it takes other people to tell Sam that he's worth something, and he's actually very brave, and he's actually very courageous, and that has lots of positive attributes. And Gilly did it for Sam, and I think you guys have done it for me. I think so. And ways that I'm not like Sam. Sam reads a lot of books and he's really clever. That's the only way. That's the big difference.
What's your favorite book? You can tell
My
me.
favorite book.
The one you've read the most times.
One that I keep going back to because I think it tells me a lot about my life and teaches you a lot of lessons. If nobody here has read it, please read it. And it's by an English author called Wayne Rooney, and it's called My Decade in the Premier League.
It is a classic.
It's a modern classic.
And it's a different book every time you read it.
You just approach it with it. And as you age and mature, the book seems to age and mature before your very eyes. It's almost magic. Almost.
I think the Penguin Classics edition will be coming out soon worldwide.
Yeah, you'd like to think so. It's taught me a lot about myself. My decade in Game of Thrones.
So every season, the fans have to anxiously await what's coming in the new season, and we as cast members anxiously wait to see what you guys are going to write for us. Can you talk a little bit about your process in writing, and has there ever come a time when you've planned to do one thing with a character and then the thought of having to break that news to them is like too overwhelming and you've had to change your mind?
We've never changed our minds.
We would never change our minds to
no.
because of you guys.
Because actors have everything. I mean, they're pretty and they like being in the spotlight, and so finally, as writers, we get to kill them, and it's nice.
Usually they take it well.
Yeah, most of the actors took it pretty well when we told them that they were dying. There are definitely characters that we've written more for because we've fallen in love with them, and I think John Bradley is a pretty good example.
Very true.
Samwell, both the actor, and the character, we just wanted to write more for because we saw what John did in season 1, and it was brilliant. And he started as almost like a sidekick character, and then he ended up having his own storyline that took him completely away from Jon Snow, and he had his own life, and it was so much fun writing these scenes for him where he wasn't comic relief, and it wasn't like, the outsider at Castle Black. He was his own person. So, you think of another example of something which you
say thank you for taking me away from Jon Snow, by the way.
Yeah.
You made my dream come true.
Yeah.
He seems so nice on television.
Oh, the worst.
What an actor.
Just an actor. I feel like there are a lot of people who, as we've gotten to know them, we've written more for them, and that factors into your question, the process of figuring all this stuff out. But writing is actually a very solitary and boring activity to anyone who's not doing it. So we wouldn't want to bore these people with that.
And even for the people who are doing it.
Yeah, to be honest, we're in a room with a cork board and note cards.
Okay, so but I have a second part to the question.
What's the second part?
Genuine curiosity.
I'm just curious how they transited. Okay, so
when did you know how you were going to end it? Because we all know how it's going to end, but when did you first figure that out?
Should we just tell them?
Let's tell them.
You guys want to know how it
I want
ends?
to know how it ends.
You guys can keep a secret, right?
See, that's the right answer. And what's interesting
Go and
is
tweet
some places you ask that question and everyone would say yes, but why would you want to know ahead of time how it ends?
I'm just asking how you got
Yeah.
to that point.
When did we
For a very long time.
I think the basic idea, I think it was sometime after we finished shooting the third season, was when the most basic general notions of what was going to happen at the very end.
But certain things we knew from the beginning, like we knew Daenerys is going to cross the Daenerys.
Well, that,
you
yeah.
know, and
That.
many of the major. I think the final season really took shape probably around season 3.
Yeah, and it was a slow thing where you come up with 2 or 3 major, this happens, and then every once in a while you throw another piece in there and another piece, and eventually you end up with what we ended up with this final season. It was we were lucky enough to have a long time to think about it and put stuff out there, try stuff out, say, maybe not that, maybe let's do something else. So we were lucky to have time to work with it.
Macie, could you throw me a water? Thank you.
Okay. This is such a fan question. I think people are going to love this one. Which house do you guys most identify with? And has that choice changed over the seasons?
Sophie Turner, who we talked about before, has a tattoo on her arm that says,
The Pack survived.
yeah. And I think if you come from a tight-knit family, I think there's just something about the Starks where the Starks have gone through a lot, obviously. They've had some rough times, but somehow they've managed to stick together, even when at times it seemed like they were being torn apart. So even though it seems like the obvious answer, and I wish I could come up with something, you know, more esoteric, like the Shoggle booths. Shoggle booths. I just love it. It's the Starks. I mean, the Starks are the one that I always.
In the books, there was a house whose sigil, whose sign, was a turtle.
What?
A turtle. And we cut them from the show because we thought it might look funny to have turtle flags waving around with no explanation. And I've always felt bad about that. I really feel, I feel like in hindsight, if we had it to do over, I would argue for keeping, I don't remember the name of the house, but whatever the house turtle.
Well, there's a whole bit in the first season where you guys are watching the joust. You and Sansa are watching the joust, and you're taking the piss out of the stupid sigils. And one of them was the turtle sigil, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
but I think we cut it though.
We cut it.
I don't think we ever had made a turtle banner. So we did, I would have one in my home, and I don't. So whatever house that is, that's the one that I feel
Can
for.
I tell you my favorite house sword?
No.
The Tarly sword. That's
Yes.
the best sword.
That is so
And
sword.
That is the
beautiful
best,
sword.
Tommy Dunn armor. It's the best
Yeah.
piece of work he's ever done.
Tommy Dunn. And you know where that sword is now? Yes.
Is it really?
Yes.
Why don't I get my sword?
I have that too.
No, you don't. You have needle?
He's good.
I might have to come and take it from
Kidding.
your house.
Yes,
I've got a
Nova,
habit
yes,
of taking
Nova.
swords.
This is true, and I have a portrait of Samwell in my office.
Do you?
Yeah.
Oh, I've seen that.
Yeah. Not everybody wants the thimble, so I
He's certainly a lot less demanding.
John and Maisie, and then Samwell and Arya.
Oh, right. Well, John and Martin.
Who's the favorite one?
Well, favorite as a human being. Obviously, John, but favorite character.
There's somebody combined them.
Fine, I
Yeah,
know.
I've had that even already consistent be in more books. John should make it how to use the sword. And then you
Hey, you don't kill white worker. You don't kill bad.
Does it sound like they're having more fun now? There's a radio.
Okay, well, who's John? It's your question. With this question, shut that all. We think we work on the most complex series ever, right? But is that true? In an average season, how many crew are on a normal day? It talks about shooting in all the crew on the same day. It talks about some of the kind of logistics that go on big operations.
I think if there's any reason that these people don't gather in this hall today, there's one reason to talk logistics. I think that's what excites everybody the most. Statistics, logistics, and numbers. It's the truth is we don't know, because everything changes. There's different numbers of crew, and maybe there's 4 or several, like 5 or 600 people, between 500 and 700 who work all the time. And the day we have a lot of extras, you would have 500-600 extras, and then you have another 500-600 crew deal with them. So it changes a lot. But it's logistically very complicated, like for us and for everyone on the show. We have very little to do with logistics. We're both very bad at that. And Bernie Caulfield, who really is the person who makes this thing flow year after year, our producers, the person who makes it sail, flow. Is that a funny word? Just every word's a funny word. She's one who figures out all those details.
So moving on. Is a good question, but moving on. Arya has killed many people on the show. She might have the highest body count. All the different characters you killed on the show, which was your favorite kill? Which one gave you the most satisfaction?
So there's a lot of different reasons why it's very fun to kill someone. One reason is because the fact you want it so bad. So when we kill the figure, and then they kind of reactions like this. But in terms of actually shooting the scene, it's very much sound scene and it should be. And so for me, shooting on set is not as fun as say when you kill characters like Marin Terrace. Because shooting a stunt scene like that when I was 15 and just left school and I was working on the show full time, and I spent a year afternoon waiting for me to come back with prosthetics on my eyes, have to stab them out at night. That's fun. So there's a lot of differences, but for me, so far, there's a few more in the season to explain, but up until this point, killing characters around was fun. What about you guys? What's your favorite Arya kill? Or killing in general?
Not the same way. Marin Terrace was really good. That was a huge directive. Who?
Walter Frey?
That's really good. I never got that one. They start with the other woman starting and then that's a great one.
You gave my scene to someone else?
It was still Arya. It just wasn't amazing.
I get it.
I like when Rory just walked up on that guy who didn't know he was there and just chopped it off. It's sort of quick acting. It wasn't Arya. Didn't really have much to do with it already. Telling how he was using his system. John, if you could have killed any character in the show, which character would you have killed? Samwell must have killed somebody. Deep, violent impulses. Who would it be?
No,
Besides anybody but
well, speaking to John, not necessarily Sam, I don't think this would be a kill Sam would necessarily be interested in. If I had to kill anybody, having lived Samwell's skin for 9 years, I'd kill Randall Tarly. Randall's worldview. And I think Sam is diametrically opposed to that Samurai worldview. So it wouldn't be something that Sam would necessarily get involved with. I think having worn some of the scars and some of the emotional, psychological trauma that Randall inflicted on his soul, to him, that is popular choice. And that sense of rejection, that sense of abuse, trauma, I don't think I could restrain myself around that. There's no justification to be that to anyone else. So Randall is the only name on my list.
Some of the scenes with characters are really are so difficult to watch because they're doing so strange and annoying. It's not what we want for the story. But for you guys, it must be very different because that's the reaction to what you're doing is really great. So is there any in particular that stood out that you're writing and thinking like people are going to hate this, but for that amount of story, like it's really great what you're doing? There are certain conversations, certain characters when you're writing something like that.
I feel like Jack is a good job. He played one of maybe the most despicable people who's ever depicted on screen. And you're right, he's one of the loveliest, most opposite. Never his first characters who have absolutely nothing to do in real life characters that play on the show. It's hard to get anybody to be further than Jack is. So Jack will always be in these situations where he was acting horribly and doing absolutely horrible things to people. And from our perspective, we're shooting things because he's very bad towards two women who he invites to his bedroom. And Jack himself, Jack just was old then. No, he's younger. He was 19. I don't think Jack was raised very well. He, I think, was personally shocked at what he intended to witness. And the dude seemed that he was not equipped to handle what his character was doing. And watching him struggle with how difficult it was, and yet pull through and do it as a professional. It does create a very different situation for us. We're seeing how hard it is for some of these lovely people to become horrible people. You know, flip the switch with somebody else's action.
Okay, can we talk about the illusions of musicians in the series of the musicians? Have you been enjoying that aspect of musicians? Do you suggest the idea of favourite musicians to cast? And we know you love music, so do you guys have any musical guests that you have in this series?
Dan's working on that one. So we have that in that one. I don't think we've had a big series.
Usually we're going to have masks on episodes of all that, and that's usually almost always shared.
It's also coming from the musicians themselves. It's like the whole thing, like I said, I wanted to be seen. We were doing it at Red Light. I mean, we had a balcony who ended up firing crossbows and the drums were great. So it all just comes from
Remember, Secret Ross was like that. This was fantastic. And they had asked, would it be possible to be on the show? We were huge for years. Yes, we always warn everybody, this is so boring. especially the background on the show, was so boring because they were at John Green's wedding. They were the musicians at John Green's wedding. And then it took 3 or 4 days to shoot that scene. They had to be there for 3 or 4 days because they had to be in the background. Well, they shot the only scene. Cigarettes said, yeah, that's fine. I know, it's great. I just want to be on the show. After 3 hours before he had shot his close-ups, and he says, okay, that's great. I can go now. He says, no, you're here for 4 days in these costumes. Very hot day. Just stand there and do nothing for 4 days over and over again. So a lot of them they realize how unglamorous shooting is compared to what they do for a living, which is stepping out in front of crowds of people who cheer or step out and cheer all night, and then get to go home and then making television interviews is not like that. People only cheer long after you're finished.
So by extension, if behind this guy you have anybody that's musicians you'd like to have, if you could have anybody alive would be awesome, who would that be?
It's hard because a lot of those people would break. Like at one point somebody offered, I said, I'm very good friends with Robert Plant of Led Zeppelin. And they said that in the show was so I had the opportunity to go hang out outside with Robert Plant and have dinner or whatever. It would have been amazing, but to see Robert Plant, so most of the names that you would mention to people who probably would have on the show, just how, iconic their faces are.
I think Snoop Dogg. We find that Snoop Dogg. I know you like that.
I think he's talking about people as soon as he saw Snoop Dogg on the show,
Alright, so both of you were very young on the cast. Obviously, you were 12 and you were 20. That's crazy. Which is part of the question. The one of the very scenes that they had Macie was when we were shooting highlights. The scene that actually not in the highlight of there. And you were watching from the balcony, right? Remember that scene? It was one of the first scenes that they shot ever. So it was this pilot was shot the year before. So if you remember how young how young Arya was in season 1. This is a year before that. I mean, she was even smaller. And it is the first time I think you'd ever been in front of cameras, right? And we were running in the daylight, and in Northern Ireland's very far north, and the sun sinks very quickly. And we literally had, I think, like 3 minutes left to get the shot before we ran out of time. And we needed Macie to hit it. We needed Macie to hit it on the first take. And there's 100 people from the crew standing around watching this tiny little girl who stood up there and just acted like a boss and just nailed it in the first take. So both of you in a way grew up on the show. What was that like? I know it's a hard question, but I mean, what's it like to have your childhood on the set of Game of Thrones or your young manhood?
I think one of the interesting things that I've only started thinking about recently now that the show is coming to an end is that we all met each other at the last possible point before we became known to anybody. So I was like one of the last people to meet Kit Harington before he became Kit Harington. And it's the same with Amelia, it's the same with Macie, it's the same with Sophie. So it's been so interesting, and I'm sure it's been interesting for you guys as well to see how changes in people's circumstances haven't affected them as people. And I just wanted to, just a quick question to kind of fire back at you. Was that something you were conscious of in the casting process?
You mean how you got along, or?
Not how you got along, but how well you predicted that
it's
the
always
unknown people were going to be able to handle.
It's always the most terrifying thing because we saw Macie's, David mentioned earlier, we saw Macie's little audition on a 2-inch window on a computer screen. And then we met her in person, and she was fantastic in person. But it's one thing to do a great job in a room in front of 4 people. It's another thing when there's 5 minutes left in the day and 400 people buzzing all around you. It's
another thing to be able to get it right on the first try under all that pressure when you're 11 or 12 years old. So that's the thing that you never really know until it happens, is how people behave on the day that you're shooting. And that has been with everybody, all the core people on the show. That's been the greatest pleasure and surprise for us, that you guys all got out there and didn't crumble under what must have felt. I can only imagine.
There he is.
You look beautiful.
Já estamos? Já estamos aqui no ar, sim, meu Deus do céu. Macie Williams, John Bradley aqui com a gente para falar sobre Game of Thrones, para falar sobre o painel. Sim.
Natalia is saying that you are here and how is your excitement to be here in Brazil? Because we know all the fans keep asking, please come to Brazil, please come to Brazil, and now you're here.
It's amazing, yeah. I mean, other cast members have come to Brazil in the past. I know that Liam Cunningham came here, and Alfie came here, and Kit and Richard came years and years ago. And they've always come back and said, if you get a chance to go to Brazil, you must go, because you'll never have seen passion like it for the show. You'll have never have seen such enthusiasm. If you get a chance, go. And now we've gone. Now we're here in Brazil, and everything that they said has come true, and then more besides. We've never seen this level of passion for the show. We've never seen this level of commitment and this kind of feedback. There's a lot of beautiful people here, and the fact that we shoot our show over in Northern Ireland and we come to Brazil, which seems like the other side of the world, and everybody loves our show so much, it's a really beautiful and humbling experience.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And we're wondering, because you are in the last season, and so how is your training, not to give spoilers, because you're going to be asked a lot about this, but how is your training to not let anything out? Like, you have to
You have to memorize certain
memorize
words,
your answers,
like,
not to leave anything out.
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking a lot this trip about how our characters are not usually part of the bigger story, the fight for the throne. Neither of our characters really care too much about that sort of power. So to avoid spoilers with like the Battle of the Bastards or with the Battle of Blackwater or anything like that, it's been fairly easy because we've not really been like directly involved with those huge spoiler moments. And coming into this final season, everything's sort of starting to overlap a lot more. And so it's been the first time that I've really had to train what I say to not give away any spoilers, which is really difficult. So I don't know how the cast have done such a good job up until this point, but it's difficult. But, you know, at the end of the day, the fans, you don't want to know from us now. It's never going to be anywhere near as epic as it will be watching the finished product. So
That's one thing that you have to remember if you're trying to avoid spoilers, is the number one rule is they don't really want to know. It's called a spoiler for a reason. They don't want it spoiled for them. So it's mainly said for something to say. They say it just so they can say something. So if you have a handy phrase, or if you just bat them away in a nice way, they're not going to push it. Yeah. It's just to have a little bit of interaction. But no, I mean, this is a really tough time of year for us, because it's the time of year where we know what's going to happen, but nobody else knows what's going to happen. So this is as bad as it gets in terms of we have the knowledge. We can't wait to get the show on, because as soon as the show goes on, everybody's going to know, and we don't have to keep any secrets anymore.
And do you have like best friends, or do you tell like to your best friend or your family? Someone knows?
Yeah, my mom. I tell my mom. So at the beginning, my mom would read everything because I was so young. Yeah. And so as the seasons have gone on and I've started doing the show without her, and we've like sort of parted a little bit more on that, but she's still like, so did you get the scripts through yet? Can I read them? So my mum also knows the ending of the show, but she obviously isn't there when we shoot anymore. So much of it is still a surprise to her. But yeah, it's really nice having someone close to me that I can chat to about it, because otherwise my head would explode with all the secrets.
Yeah. I know for a fact that if I could tell my mum absolutely everything. I could read the whole script out to my mum, knowing for a fact that she'd forget it as soon as I'd said it. So if you want to keep a secret safe, tell my mum, because she won't remember it for very long.
And you guys ever slip something away and you have to make a turn, even in last season, in other seasons, like you say something that you shouldn't, and then you try to, oh no, but that wasn't that.
Many times.
Many times. if in an interview you ever hear me say, that's just a theory, I'm not saying that's really what's going to happen, I've just said something that's going to happen.
And 7 seasons now is going to wrap it. How was your feeling when you shot your last scene on the show?
At the beginning of shooting this final season, after reading the scripts with everyone, and a lot of people had begun shooting, and you know, so much of the show is a lot of dialogue and a lot of explaining to the audience what's happening. And they're not always the most fun scenes to shoot. And I'd come into shooting and the whole crew and everyone had been shooting a lot of those kind of scenes where you're just explaining a lot. And there was a general like mood of like, oh, we've got 9 months of this to go. And I remember at that moment just thinking like, I'm never gonna, if I feel myself starting to like act that way, I'm going to just stop immediately, because this is the last time we're ever going to get to do this. And I sort of witnessed it in other people, and I thought, I'm going to just take every single moment of this series and have the most fun with it. And I truly did, and it got to my final scene, and it was emotional, of course, but I left set thinking I've done everything with Arya that I wanted to do, and I've had so much fun, and I wanted to just leave on a real high, and I did, and that will always be my final memory of Arya, just having a lot of fun. And yeah, I don't regret anything. I don't feel sad about that.
It felt like a very long goodbye in a way, because I remember for season 8 I worked on the very first day of season 8, and there was a speech, the director made a speech where he said, this is the last first day we'll ever have.
Yeah.
And then, presumably, then the second day was the last second day we'll ever have. And it felt like a really long goodbye, because even if you weren't rapping, you were saying goodbye to a location or another actor or a member of the crew or even a costume or a prop. Every day felt like the last something. So every day felt poignant and every day was emotional, and it felt like a very long goodbye over those 9 months.
And you have to say goodbye to your character as well, because it's a long time playing someone else. It's almost like someone you know so well, and you have to say goodbye to them. So.
Completely, the same way that saying goodbye to cast members, you know, like we'll meet again, but it will never be in these circumstances. And I guess that's what you're really saying goodbye to, you know. We'll see one another again, and you know, Arya is always going to be a part of my life, but in terms of playing her, it's never going to be like that, and that's just, you know, the way it goes. The reason why I love this show so much and why it's so groundbreaking in what it's done is because we did something that was so new and so spectacular, but we didn't just, you know, do that to death. We've left it where people want more, and that's the way it should be. These good things must come to an end, and I think, although that's really difficult, it's right. Feels right.
You want to know what's going to happen next with all of these characters, and I think that's down to the writing and how detailed and how brilliantly drawn these characters are, and that's why the deaths have been so emotional all the way through the series, because people die, and you know they could have gone on to more. You know that they could have achieved more, and you know that they had a life beyond that death, and that's why it's hard to leave them. It feels like they kind of are going to exist even after we've left them, because they feel like they have such a life. They're like living, breathing people that we inhabited the skin of for a few months every year, and now we've just left them. We feel like we've abandoned our characters a little bit. The fact that we're never going to touch base with them again.
Yeah, and we're talking a lot about our emotional moments in this last season, but do you have like a fun moment that happens in backstage and behind the scenes doing press or shooting the scene in this last season?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of anything that's not a spoiler. Oh, there was a scene this series that was great fun. Isaac, who has been restrained to his chair for the last few series, was conveniently parked next to a roaring flame right in the middle of this very, very hot set with furs wrapped all over him. Because although it's like the long winter right now, you know, for us it's boiling hot in the middle of summer. So, but yeah, he just decided, I don't have any lines, I'm just going to take a little nap right here. Which was really funny, looking around and thinking, I wish I was sat down for this scene. But yeah, no, Isaac having a nap was was a very funny memory from this year.